Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we are standing in front of a door, and honestly, it's kind of a disappointment.
It's not exactly what you'd expect.
No, if you walked past this thing on the street, you wouldn't just miss it. You'd probably, step over it to get to something that looked more important. It's not the kind of entrance you write home about.
It is certainly not the kind of entrance most of us spend our lives looking for. We're all conditioned to look for the grand, the gilded, the impressive.
Exactly. We're looking at this concept called the Shining Gateway.
Right.
Now, based on the name alone, I'm expecting a radiant golden archway, maybe some trumpets, a path to paradise that looks like a VIP entrance.
Of course.
But we've been digging into James Allen's work, specifically his text Through the Gates of Good, and this poem, Eolais, and he just pulls the rug out pretty quickly.
He does indeed. He describes this gateway to eternal happiness as mean, moss-grown, dark, and neglected.
Which is a massive marketing problem, if you ask me. Come through this door, it's dark and covered in moss.
It's terrible marketing, but it is brilliant psychology.
Yeah.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive today.
Right.
We are exploring this allegory of Eolais. He's a character who really represents the awakening soul. To answer a single nagging question: why is the path to peace hidden in plain sight?
And maybe more importantly, why do we refuse to take it?
That's it?
Yeah, because Allen isn't saying the gate is hidden because it's a secret or, buried underground. He's suggesting it's hidden because we're too snobbish to walk through it.
That is the core tension. We're going to look at the difference between the dream of our worldly life, the stress, the ambition, the noise, and the reality of this shining gateway.
So let's start with the visual, because Allen is very specific about the architecture here. In the section, The Gate and the Way, he describes a little gate. He says it leads to a lowly way. To the foolish, it just looks totally unappealing. Why does the entrance to something good have to look so bad?
Well, it all comes down to conditioning and the nature of the ego. Allen argues that men avoid this gate because they despise the small.
Right.
I mean, think about our culture. We are conditioned to look for the spectacular. We want the grand gesture, the viral moment, the complex intellectual theory that explains everything.
We want the hack. We want the secret code that unlocks the universe without us having to do any of the boring work.
We want the hack. We want the shortcut. But the shining gateway represents simple goodness. And Allen uses a very specific, somewhat heavy word here: sinlessness.
Yeah, I flagged that. Sinlessness. In a modern context, that word lands with a bit of a thud. It feels judgmental.
It does.
It feels like we're about to get a lecture on morality.
It can feel that way, but let's strip the religious baggage for a second.
Yeah.
And look at how Allen defines it in the text.
Okay.
He says the gate is straight, which is an old word for narrow or tight. It is so narrow that no sin can pass through.
So think of sin not just as a moral failure,
but as error or baggage. It's the baggage of the self.
So it's a filter. It's like airport security, but for your soul.
Exactly. It's a filter. Allen writes that we have to strip away the garments of opinion, creed, and ego. We have to become small to fit through a small gate.
It's like trying to squeeze through a turnstile while you're carrying 10 suitcases full of your own opinions, your grudges, your whole I'm right and you're wrong arguments.
You literally cannot fit.
You can't.
And because we don't want to drop the suitcases, we blame the turnstile. We say, oh, that gate is too small, it's moss-grown, it's beneath me.
Right.
Allen writes that men despise the lowly and thereby the lofty lose. We miss the majesty because we can't handle the humility required to enter.
Thereby the lofty lose. That's a great line. And it brings us to the character of Eolais.
Right, the poem.
This is the dramatic poem included in the source material, and it's essentially a dialogue between a sleeping soul and these voices of truth trying to wake him up.
Eolais is the proxy for the listener, for us. He represents the average human consciousness. He is sleeping, but here is the catch. He doesn't know he's sleeping.
Which is the definition of dreaming. If you knew you were asleep, you'd wake up.
Exactly. The poem begins with voices calling to him, "Wake, Eolalis, wake." But he's trapped in what the text calls dreams of self, fond illusions, and shadow.
That phrase, dreams of self, I found that really striking. It's not just that he's dreaming about flying or, showing up to school naked. He's dreaming of himself.
That is the critical distinction. To Eolais, his dream feels like reality. He is caught up in his desires, his sorrows, his personal victories and defeats. To him, That drama is the universe.
But the voices are telling him he's actually in a dark night of misery.
Yes.
It's like when you're in one of those incredibly stressful dreams where you're running late for a meeting and the anxiety is just, it's a 10 out of 10.
It feels life or death.
It feels life or death. Then you wake up and realize, oh, I was just in bed. None of that was real. Alan is implying that our actual waking lives, our stress about the stock market, our anger at traffic, are just like that dream.
He is. And he's suggesting that the shining gateway isn't just a door, it's the wake-up call. It's the moment you realize the nightmare isn't real because the self-experiencing it is just a construct.
But this is where it gets philosophically tricky, because Alan drops some lines in this text that are, they're essentially quantum physics before quantum physics existed. He starts talking about the nature of reality itself.
The architecture of reality, if you will.
There's this one line that I had to read 3 times. Worlds would vanish but for thinking.
Worlds would vanish but for thinking. It is a profound statement on the power of consciousness.
But isn't that a bit solipsistic? If I stop thinking about the chair I'm sitting on, the chair doesn't just disappear. The text isn't suggesting we live in a simulation, is it?
No, not a computer simulation, not really. Alan isn't necessarily talking about physical matter. He's talking about worlds in the sense of human experience.
Ah, okay.
The world of sorrow, the world of shame, the world of status. Those worlds only exist because we sustain them with our thought.
He uses this analogy of the rainbow to explain this, and I think we need to break that down because it's a bit dense, but it's really beautiful once you get it.
It is a beautiful metaphor.
Wow.
So, okay, picture a beam of pure white light. In Alan's philosophy, that represents the one eternal truth. It is unchanging, colorless, pure.
Got it.
Now, imagine that light hitting a prism or, water droplets and scattering into a rainbow.
Okay, so we get red, blue, green, the whole spectrum.
Right. Alan suggests that the universal changes, so the drama of life, the rise and fall of nations, your personal bad day, those are the colors.
You're the maskings.
They are the maskings of the one eternal dream. He says dignity and shame and sorrow, pain and anguish, love and hate are but maskings of the mighty pulsing thought that governs fate.
So the colors aren't the light, they are just what happens when the light gets broken up.
Precisely. They're refractions of the light.
Okay, that helps. So my anguish or my dignity, these things I cling to and identify with, they aren't the ultimate reality.
Correct. They are temporary appearances created by the turbulence of thought. Just like a rainbow needs the turbulence of rain and light to exist.
Right.
If you stop the refraction, if you still the mind, the scattered colors just collapse back into the pure white light.
Okay, that leads to a line that I think listeners might struggle with. I struggled with it. He says, evil is the thought that thinks it.
Yes. Evil is the thought that thinks it. Good, the thought that makes it so.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If I walk outside and I punch someone in the face, that's evil. It's not just a thought, it's a broken nose. Is Alan saying evil isn't real? Is he saying we should just pretend bad things aren't happening?
No, he is not saying the broken nose isn't real. And he isn't saying that if you ignore a tiger, it won't eat you. He is talking about the root cause, the origin point.
He's looking upstream.
Precisely. He's arguing that light and darkness, sin and pureness, likewise out of thinking grow. Evil is a condition of ignorance. It's a shadow cast by the self. Why do you punch someone? Because of anger, fear, or greed. All thoughts rooted in the self. If you remove the self, the ego, the selfish desire, you remove the thing that casts the shadow. You remove the capacity for evil.
So the dream is all within you. It's not out there. The world isn't doing it to you. You are projecting it onto the world.
Yes, and the dreamer waiteth long for the morning to awake him. That's the state of Eolais. He is waiting to wake up to the living thought.
So how does he actually do it? Because it's one thing to understand the rainbow metaphor intellectually.
Right.
It's another thing to stop being angry at your boss or stop worrying about your bank account. How does Eolais cross that threshold?
He has a breakthrough moment in the poem. And notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't ascend. He doesn't find some ladder to the heavens. He looks down.
He looks down.
He spots the shining gateway hidden within the lowly gate. There's this pivotal moment where he says, I have found the little gate, mean and moss-grown, thy lowly way, and I will enter in.
Mean and moss-grown. He accepts the ugliness of it. He stops waiting for the VIP entrance.
He realizes that by avoiding the lowly, he was losing the lofty. This is the great paradox. You cannot reach the heights of splendor without walking through the gate of humility.
He gets that the boring, neglected path, the one nobody wants, is the only one that actually goes anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get practical with this. Because humility is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. Eolais steps through the mossy gate. He accepts the lowly way. What does that actually look like on a Tuesday morning?
The text is very specific here. It's not about suddenly levitating or having visions. The way is described as the way of holy thought and meditation.
Meditation, okay.
But be careful. He doesn't just mean sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed. Alan emphasizes that wisdom isn't found in the passionate press of the crowd. It is found in common ways and tasks well done.
Tasks well done. So we're talking about excellence in the mundane.
We are. The source says, wisdom lies hidden in our common life, even in the daily task. The shining gateway is hidden in how you perform your nearest duty.
Well, it's almost disappointing.
Why? Why disappointed?
Because I want the shining gateway to be a retreat in Bali. Yeah, I want it to be a massive epiphany that changes my life in a second. But Alan is saying the gateway is doing the dishes.
Well, it's doing the dishes without resentment.
Yeah.
It's answering the tedious email with integrity. It's bringing that holy thought into the mud, the mundane.
That's actually harder.
Much harder. That's why the gate is moss-grown.
Yeah.
No one uses it. It's easier to go on a retreat than it is to be cheerful while doing your taxes. It requires constant vigilance.
Alan uses a metaphor here that I found really intense, the white robe.
The white robe of the heart invisible.
Right. The goal of this path is to cleanse this robe. But the text makes a very hard point. The white robe of the heart invisible is stained with sin and sorrow, grief and pain, and all repentant pools and springs of prayer shall not avail to wash it white again.
Yeah.
I stopped reading there for a second. All repentant pools and springs of prayer shall not avail. Prayer won't wash it. That flies in the face of a lot of religious teaching.
It does.
That sounds incredibly harsh.
It does. And it's meant to shock you. Alan is talking about cause and effect. He's saying that you can't just ask for the stain to be removed while you're still rolling in the mud.
You can't ask for forgiveness for being angry if you keep choosing to be angry.
Exactly. He says, while in the path of ignorance I walk, the stains of error will not cease to cling. Prayer without behavioral change is just wishful thinking. You have to actually stop the behavior that causes the stain.
So it's about action. It's about what he calls self-sacrifice. But again, that term can be so misunderstood.
Right. It's not the martyr kind of sacrifice where you let people walk all over you. The text gives this instruction. You must master that in thee, which masters others.
Master that in thee, which masters others. That is a power move.
Well, think about what masters most people, what pulls people around on a leash.
Fear, the need for approval, greed,
Anger, lust, impatience, anxiety. These things are usually our masters. Alan says you have to subjugate yourself until passion is transmuted into peace.
transmuted, like alchemy.
Exactly like alchemy. This is a crucial point. You aren't just repressing the anger. You are bottling it up so it explodes later. You are turning that energy into peace.
You're taking the raw material of your chaotic emotions and refining it into the gold of character.
That's it. And that's the work of the mean and moss-grown gate. It's the daily grind of saying no to your own pettiness.
Yes. Eolais realizes that his chains are self-made of man's long sorrow. See his bands self-wrought, self-bound. We bind ourselves, so we must unbind ourselves.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you frame it that way, it sounds like incredibly hard work. It sounds like discipline. But the destination is described so beautifully.
It is. The source says this lowly way leads to glorious esplanades and heights of splendor.
Glorious esplanades. I mean, I want to be on a glorious esplanade.
We all do. But the insight here, the real takeaway, is that you don't get the esplanade by chasing the esplanade. You get it by tending to the mossy gate.
You get the glory by embracing the grind.
The spiritual grind. Eolais realizes that by avoiding the small duties, the small acts of self-control, he was missing the whole point. He was looking for God in the thunder, but the divine was in the whisper he was ignoring.
And the text sums it up. The lowly heart, it stands revealed to him who lives the sinless life today.
Today. That is the crucial word.
It really brings us to the synthesis of this whole deep dive. The shining gateway isn't a place you go when you die. It's not a destination. It's a psychological threshold you cross right now.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of our lives, it fundamentally shifts how we view our problems.
How so?
We usually see our problems, our difficult boss, our financial stress, our relationship struggles, as obstacles to our peace. We think, if I could just get rid of these, then I'd be happy.
Right. Get out of my way. I'm trying to find the shining gateway. You're blocking the view.
Exactly. But Alan is arguing that dealing with those problems correctly with patience, with integrity, with selflessness. That is the gate. The obstacle is the path. The mean and moss-grown task in front of you is the door handle.
That is such a flip. It turns the mundane into the sacred. It makes every annoyance an opportunity to practice walking through the gate.
It does. It reminds me of the line in the poem where Eolais says, "Self shall depart and truth shall take its place."
Right.
When you stop making it about you, why is this happening to me? And start making it about truth. What is the right action here? The suffering vanishes. The dream of misery ends, and you wake up.
You know, for a text that talks about a moss-grown gate and a lowly way, this is incredibly energizing. It puts the power back in our hands.
It does.
We aren't waiting for a savior or a stroke of luck or the lottery. We just have to be willing to fit through the narrow door.
And that willingness is the definition of humility.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with a final thought, something to really chew on. It comes from later in the text, and it's a challenge.
The present is all thou hast.
The present is all thou hast, thy sure possessing.
It cuts through all the excuses. It cuts through, "I'll be good when," or "I'll start when."
It really does. So here is the provocation for you, the listener. If the shining gateway is hidden in your nearest duty and your daily task, as James Allen says, what lowly thing are you avoiding right now?
What is that one mean and moss-grown conversation or responsibility you've been despising?
Because that thing you are avoiding might actually be your door to peace. It might be the only way through. So stop looking for the golden arch. Look for the little gate. And as Eolais said,
I will enter in.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the other side.